The following program is produced by Londonderry residents. The views and opinions expressed are not necessarily the views and opinions of the LACTV staff or its volunteers, and should not be considered an endorsement by CTV 20 or its staff and volunteers.
Good morning, Londonderry. Welcome to Concord Conversations. We're here to try and inform the citizenry as best we can on what's going on in Concord and what's going on in the town and what's going on in the counties and state. This has been the goal of us when we started this, and for the next 3 sessions, what we're going to talk about leading up to the election is what we've done, how successful we have been, and what we plan on doing in the next session. This session, it'll be myself, Representative McDonald, and Representative Thomas. I am Representative Packard, and 2 weeks from now, we will have 2 more of our current state representatives, and 2 weeks after that, we'll have the other current state representatives in to talk about what their hopefully their goals are for the next coming session starting in January. Wayne?
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm just finishing my second term, as you all know, and it's been a tremendous honor to represent Londonderry these last 4 years. I currently serve as the chairman of the Health and Human Services and Elderly Affairs Committee. We had well over 80 bills this past session. One of them dealt with the renewal of the Medicaid expansion bill. We came to a good compromise, and we renewed that until the turn of the next decade, the beginning of the next decade. We renewed it for 7 years, the whole Medicaid expansion project that was affiliated with Obamacare. We think it's an important program that needs to be reviewed on a regular basis. It's too important to just renew in perpetuity. But we've dealt with a lot of important issues, and certainly the House overall has dealt with a lot of important issues. And we're going to be getting into those accomplishments more as the morning unfolds. But hopefully you're going to feel it as we do, that we've served you well, and would like to continue doing so.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I know that my entire tenure, I'm in my 5th term right now, has been with the Science, Tech, and Energy Committee. Right now, I'm the vice chair of that committee, and for the past 10 years or so, we have worked hard trying to figure out ways to reduce the cost of our energy. I discovered when I first got involved is that it's not that simple, because a lot of the cost of energy is borne by federal policies and market prices. There's not a whole lot we can do at the state level to reduce some of the costs of our electricity, but there are some things that we've worked on. Any programs that were started by the state, we've looked at, we've cut back on some of the subsidies that have been put forward for a lot of the projects. And I know it looks like pennies, but we can do a little more. I know in the upcoming session, we have plans to look at further areas that the state has passed previously on how we can reduce those costs. And I think it's also important that we start getting out the message that under the new technology, under the new safe technology of nuclear energy, we would like to start putting that into our basket of things way in the future, but something that we should be looking at in terms of clean energy, because we all know that nuclear energy does not create carbon emissions, and that is a good base load type of energy production that we need to start looking at sometime in the future to augment the other energies that we have here right now. So those are some of the things that we're looking at in the future, and we hope that we can be successful in at least laying the groundwork for people to understand what we can be doing.
Just a brief history of myself. I am in my 17th term as a state representative from Londonderry. I have chaired the House Transportation Committee for 12 years. I have been Deputy Speaker, Speaker Pro Tem, and now I am the Speaker of the House. And I've been fortunate enough to be able to make sure that Londonderry gets taken care of. I was extremely involved in getting the $8 million for the water project going down High Range Road. And a couple of years ago, I got $2,000 for the robotics team. So my tenure as Speaker has been very rewarding. I'm hoping that I can have your support running again for state representative. And also, not that you'll be voting on it, but the members will re-elect me as Speaker. One of the things that we've done in what we plan for this coming session, and one of the couple of things we did this last session is we set up a special committee for housing, and we set up a special committee for childcare. When we've gone to the businesses, one of the biggest things that we keep hearing from business is that they're having trouble attracting workers because the cost of housing is so expensive. And if it isn't the housing, it's the fact that many of our childcare centers closed during COVID, and many of them didn't get reopened again. So we're having a real crunch for parents being able to find proper childcare and being able to afford to do it. So we had two separate special committees that I set up, and they've started to chip away at this, and we're looking at possibly setting up a brand new committee that just deals with housing issues. We also put together a contract with New Hampshire, and this is some of the things, 10 of the things that we're looking at. We want to look at expanding housing and lowering property taxes. I mean, this is one of the biggest things we keep hearing is that housing is just too expensive, and we need to find out a way to take care of that situation, and lowering property taxes at the same time. Lower taxes and spending. Growing jobs in the economy. And we firmly believe, and I think history will prove, that when we have lower taxes, we attract more businesses to the state, and those businesses bring the ability for people to work and get good jobs. And we can just see the expansion that we've had down off Pentonville Road in Londonderry with all the new construction and all the new businesses that are coming in down there. One of the other things that we've heard from many of the parents in Londonderry and across the state is empowering parents in education. This past session, I did sponsor a parental bill of rights. Unfortunately, it failed, but I have re-sponsored that, and I'm sure that we will be able to get it passed this session. And Doug just talked about the energy costs, and maybe he'll, elaborate a little bit more on that. And I just talked about the child care costs and reduce health care prices. Now, I know this has been a federal issue and a state issue, and I think we all agree that that's one of the goals that should be nonpartisan, and everybody should be working on to make sure that seniors and anybody that needs a medication is able to afford it. We also want to make sure that we continue to support the police, and we continue to work on bail reform. The bail reform bill that we passed, 4 or 5 years ago, turned out to be somewhat of a failure, where we were catching people and they were getting released right away, and then weeks later or days later they were out there doing more criminal activity. That has to stop. We put in place one of the most realistic bills on abortion that there is in the country. In fact, it's almost identical, I believe, to Massachusetts. It says for the first 6 months of your pregnancy, you will have unabashed ability to go and have an abortion for any reason whatsoever. After 6 months, we put some safeguards in there for the health of the mother and the health of the if the baby is severely deformed. This is a realistic bill. We do not believe that babies should be killed after they're just about ready to be born, which is what the Democrats believe in, and they're the ones that are the extremists on this issue, not the Republicans. We put in place a very sensible abortion bill, and that is something that we're going to stick to. We have no intention of expanding it, but we are going to support what we have on the books right now. Wade?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The contract with New Hampshire is basically a commitment that our current leadership in the House, our current membership, and the majority in the House has made to the people of New Hampshire. This is what we're going to do. This is our campaign platform. What we're offering if we're fortunate enough to gain your support and continue in the majority into the next term. Reflecting on some of the things we've already done and you know, Republicans working together, and yes, with our Democratic colleagues as well in some cases. We've phased out the interest and dividends tax. That ends the end of this year, Mr. Speaker, which is a major, you know, it's basically an income tax. We always said New Hampshire is income tax free. Well, at the end of the year, we really will be. We've always been income tax free on personal earned income, but not on unearned income, which is what interest and dividends are. We also cut the women meals tax by 0.5%, which was, you know, tourism is the by industry in New Hampshire. Going out to eat is certainly a big part of that, no matter where you go. And that's something we're very proud of by reducing that, and perhaps who knows what the opportunities will be in the future to re-examine that whole issue and other tax issues. It's been a very productive term. Challenging, certainly. It's been a very closely divided House, as we all know, and I'm sure as you've witnessed in various media reports. But you know, public service, a commitment to you, doing what we believe is right, is paramount. And that's what we've used as our guiding principles, and that's why we've been able to accomplish as much as we have.
Doug? That's right, Mr. Speaker, and Wayne, we are looking at ways that we can reduce costs. And I'll tell you right now, I know for a fact, you know this, people in this town are struggling, particularly with the inflation rate. I know several constituents that have contacted me. They are barely getting by. In fact, I don't even think that they're getting by. They're very, very badly off with a high cost of everything, groceries, fuel, electricity. On my part, I know that we look at things, even when the old saying was, it's only going to cost you a cup of coffee more to do this, that adds up over the cost of a year. We in the committee look at any program, any bill that comes by that might increase the cost on your electric bill. And I know that we were successful a couple of years ago to thwart a decision that was made by a subcommittee to put in a program that was going to raise your electric rates. We petitioned the Public Utilities Commission that this was unacceptable. We thought it was too high, and eventually the Public Utilities Commission agreed with us, and that program did not go forward. That saved several $1 million over the course of an entire year. So we look at programs like that. We look at programs right now where if you look at your electric bill and look at the various programs that are on it, some of them are bundled, and you don't really know all of the costs that are involved with that. We are looking at those programs now to give back to the taxpayer more than we're giving right now. Systems benefit charge is one of them that we're looking at. We would like to be able to eliminate it. That is something that's on our table to look at how we can do that. So those are things that we can look at right now. I know it's not as much as the cost of your energy portion because that's out of our control, but we are looking for every possible corner how we can save money. One other thing going on right now is that we are aware that a utility is planning to do a improvement project that's going to cost millions of dollars. They claim that the cost of inflation has tripled the cost of replacing poles and wires and transformers, and that may be true. But we are going to look at that to find out and make sure, does it need to get done, how it can be done better, and does it have to be done all at once? Because those costs, even a portion of them, will be passed on to our ratepayers, and that is something that we don't want to see. So we're going to be looking at that as well.
Yeah, I just want to touch a little bit more on the interest and dividends tax. We have been phasing that out. We moved up the phase out, and it'll be totally phased out at the end of this session. What we have already found out is that, and actually it happened last year, the Democrats had a bill to stop the phase out of the interest and dividend tax. Now, this is what a tax that they claim is just for the rich. This is about people that are retired, living on Social Security, and might have some little bit of extra income coming in, from their interest on different stocks or bonds and stuff like that. So this is extremely important to the citizens of this community in this state, that we don't continue to tax them twice on their money. One of the other things that we already know, the education freedom accounts that we established in the 21 budget has been extremely successful, allowing families to choose the best education for their children. And all I hear from the Democrats is we need to give our kids a good education. We agree 100%. That's why we set up the education freedom accounts, so that parents would have the ability to send their child to the best school that is fit for them to enter into and be able to get the best education possible. They've already stated that if they take over the House, one of the first things they're going to do is eliminate the education freedom accounts. And over the past 2 years, 3 years actually, I think they've had something like 26 bills that they filed to try and do that. We can't let that happen. The future of too many of our children is at stake here, and we need to make sure that they get the best education possible. The other thing is that if you're a person that believes in the Second Amendment, I can guarantee you some of the most horrendous anti-gun legislation will be introduced by the Democratic left. Again, we cannot let that happen. This is what you have to consider when you go to the polls and vote. Who is going to best protect us, the citizens of Londonderry and the citizens of this state, and protect their freedom? And that's what this is about. Protecting freedom and democracy is what we believe in and what we actually stand for.
Mr. Speaker, to further state what you just said, this is not just hyperbole. We have seen bills come across in the last 10 years that would have established a state income tax or a sales tax, or would have resulted in one by programs that were unsustainable through other methods. We've seen bills come across that would have mandated the use of electric vehicles and discontinued the use of gas-powered vehicles in the state. We put that down. We're not just saying this, we have seen those bills. They come through nearly every session.
That, and I think one of the ones you're referring to, Doug, is the California standards.
That's right.
That by 2035, California wants to ban the sale of any internal combustion engine. And this country is nowhere near being ready to have every single person own an electric vehicle. The systems aren't ready for it. The grid isn't ready for it. And in every state, and California is starting to feel that pain now.
The batteries are horrendously expensive and dangerous.
Are expensive and dangerous, exactly.
Mr. Speaker, at the beginning of the show, you mentioned that we're hoping to have our other colleagues on, Representatives Dolan, Lundgren, Perez, and Dunn, in the weeks to come. I also want to mention the fact that it's been a pleasure dealing with Senator Carson, our state senator from Londonderry, majority leader of the state Senate. We hope the next president of the state Senate. She's been an incredible leader in the other body and a former state representative here in Londonderry. It's also been a tremendous pleasure to work with Governor Sununu over these last 8 years. I haven't been in the House for 8 years, but certainly you've been an observer in politics for many years and worked with him for the last 4. And As expected, the legislative and executive branches don't always agree, they're not meant to, but it's been an absolute delight from my perspective to see him there, and in my opinion, he's going to be missed, and we certainly hope that a worthy successor comes in behind him. But that's what elections are about.
Well, that's one thing that we hope to continue for the past 4 years. On every Tuesday morning, the governor, the Senate president, and myself have met during session. I mean, a few Tuesdays we didn't do it, but almost every Tuesday we meet and talk about what's coming up and what's going on. And then after that, the Senate president and I sat down almost every single week and went over the bills in both chambers. We've had a tremendous good working relationship with both the governor and the Senate, and we hope to keep that, and I'm sure we will keep that going.
Yes, I'd like to reiterate the fact that, and I'm going to ask everybody out there, ask yourselves, why have people been coming to New Hampshire recently? They've been coming from Massachusetts, they've been coming from New York, and they've been coming from Rhode Island, in some cases from California. Why have they come to New Hampshire? Why haven't they gone to Vermont or Maine or Massachusetts? New Hampshire stands alone in a lot of its policies that have made this state a fiscal conservative state and a state that people want to live in without taxes, without excessive spending. My question would be, why would we want to change that now? We have people, you'll see the same names on the ballot in November, who have kept the state moving forward in this right direction. And so we want you to remember that these are the people that have kept the state from being either too far left or too far right to do the work of the people here. So we're proud of the way we've kept things going. Sure, there are improvements. Sure, we can make things better. But right now, we're going on that path, and we do not want to see it go backwards.
Yeah, I can guarantee that with the programs that the Democrats have put forth about increasing massive amounts of money to education and massive amounts of money to just about every other program, the only way that it would be affordable is a huge income tax or a sales tax. Even though they claim they don't want it, many of them have voted for it in the past, and I can guarantee you they'd vote for it again to put their agenda forward. We need to make sure that this state stays competitive, because that's why the businesses are coming here, and that's why people are moving here. Especially, we hear a lot of people from Massachusetts are coming up because of the millionaires tax they put down here, and now they can come to New Hampshire and not be worried about being taxed because they were successful in life.
The times of economic downturn, New Hampshire's been the last to enter the recession and always the first to emerge from the recession. And that's because of the fiscal policies and the tax structure, the budgeting process, how we spend our money, how we raise our money. That all figures into that whole process. Mr. Speaker, I haven't had a chance, Doug, Representative Thomas, I haven't had a chance to look at the LSRs that much, the new legislative service requests that will ultimately become bills for the next session. I think there's been over 100 so far, if I understand.
I think it's about 160. I read about 60 of them, and I got to get a copy of the other 100 or so. But I think there's been about 160.
And many of them, I suspect, reflect the concerns you're expressing economically and in terms of other issues, Second Amendment and so forth. I think that some of them are already being introduced in this first round of new bills. Yeah,
there's been a lot of, I would call them anti-New Hampshire bills that have already been filed. And some of them are, we expect to see again another massive attempt to, excuse me, another massive attempt to eliminate the EFAs. They're, putting out misleading information as to how bad the program is. And again, it's been one of the most successful programs that we've ever put in place, and as far as helping kids get educated where they can best get educated in the school of the parent's choice. Doug?
Well, I know at the I've seen some of the LSRs that have come through, not all of them, but we know the people that are on my committee, we know which ones that will be submitted again. And it seems every year, it sounds good on paper, but a lot of programs involving, say, solar panels, they want to expand the allowance of the subsidies that the utility company has to pay for solar panels. Right now, the limit is 1 megawatt. If we go further than that, sure, more people will take advantage of it because they will be getting subsidies for the more use of their solar panels. But those subsidies are built into the utilities' cost of doing business and ultimately get folded into their rate request going towards the PUC. So from our perspective, we are looking at that and say we don't want that. We want, because what it will do is it will increase the cost of electricity. So those are also other programs that we're looking at, and that's when you hear people say that we're keeping people from having solar, that's just not the case. There's no limit up to 5 megawatts. There's no limit for how much solar someone can have on their house or business. The issue is how much subsidy are you going to get paid for it, and that's what they really mean by that. So we are looking at that to make sure that other ratepayers aren't paying for someone else's solar on their house or a business.
Yeah, speaking of legislative service requests, LSRs, as they're more commonly known, we just had a 10-day opening period for incumbents to file those bills. And immediately following the election on November 5th, starting November 6th, and I forget when it ends. I don't know if you know the date of it.
I think it's 2 weeks, but.
Yeah, all legislators, whether you're an incumbent or a legislator-elect, a representative-elect, will have that opportunity to start filing bills. Every session is a very busy time. We have usually 800 to 1,000 bills. Is that range correct, Mr. Speaker? And every one of them gets a hearing. Every one of them gets thoroughly vetted by every committee, and every one of them goes to the floor for a vote, whether it's through the consent process because the committee was unanimous, or whether there's an extensive debate. And obviously, the more controversial the bill is, the more significant the bill is, the more likely it is to go to the floor and go through a debate by both sides, the for and against, and ultimately a full vote of the House, oftentimes a roll call. But it's going to be a busy session coming up, and we're all gearing up for that. And that's something that we want you to know, that we're up there every day, or every session day and every committee day, doing the best we can to make sure that this process works as efficiently and as effectively for you.
Final thoughts?
Yeah, my final comments would be, when November comes, this is not just about the presidential election. I would ask the voters to please go down the entire ballot, because beyond the federal positions are your state and county positions, and they will affect you more than you know. And like I said before, you will see the same names on there. These are the same people that have kept the state the way it is, going forward in the right path. I ask people to go down the ballot and pick those names out, because those are the people that are going to keep New Hampshire unique and free from the rest of the states that are around us. That's why people come here. That's why we want to keep it that way.
I think I'll just piggyback off what Doug just said a little bit, and what Wayne said, is that it's imperative that you go out and you vote, and that you vote the whole ticket, because that can make the difference of winning or losing. Obviously, many of our races are decided by, this last election, we had our one race decided by one vote. So every vote does count, and we ask you to make sure you vote, and you make sure you vote the whole ticket. And we'll see you in a couple of weeks, and we'll continue our discussion with the other representatives from Londonderry. Thank you.
Enjoy your Columbus Day weekend, next weekend.
program was produced by Londonderry residents. The views and opinions expressed are not necessarily the views and opinions of the LACTV staff or its volunteers and should not be considered an endorsement by CTV 20 or its staff and volunteers.